to the Guerrilla Branders podcast. This is the direct response and social media marketing podcast for bootstrapping entrepreneurs. I am Ian Utilli.
Aaron Hind.
And we're here to introduce Andy Van Valer. Andy and I have known each other for about 13 years, been a great business mentor and friend as I have gone through the entrepreneurship ringer. I've gone to the school of hard knocks, and Andy has been there oftentimes by my side, helping me navigate what I'm doing. Andy, such an incredible resume that you have. The things that you've done in the nonprofit sector, with government, with kids and businesses of all kinds. I mean, the fact that you were part of Borland, getting started with Philippe Kahn, Netflix, Starfish, Lightsurf, all these companies, and today you're influencing hundreds of entrepreneurs one-on-one with Slingshot. So, I mean, I could talk about you for the whole podcast, which I won't do. Maybe you could tell us a bit about yourself, what you're passionate about, why passion is so significant to you, and why you love entrepreneurship.
I think it all starts with passion.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that a lot together, about if you're going to move forward, you're going to do a new entity. It is all about loving what you do.
Yeah.
Because if you love what you do, then those challenges that come up, they're not so hard to overcome. I mean,
love what you do and getting paid for it.
That's even better.
Because I like sitting on the beach drinking Corona. It's quite monetized that on you, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, that's a lot better. Money good.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about passion, your passion, the passion that you see in other entrepreneurs that you influence.
Well, that's what got me started.
Yeah.
I have a passion for startups. I love business. So that's what got me into starting Slingshot. You know, really, there's so much opportunity right now in the world, especially in Silicon Valley with all the technology. I mean, what used to cost thousands, $100,000, now can be done for tens of thousands of dollars. There's all these young kids. There's all these people coming up with all these great ideas. Now it's more of a time now to take those ideas and make them real than ever before.
What attracts you to the startups more so than established companies, the bigger companies you work with?
It's not like I'm against established big companies, but over time I've learned that that's my sweet spot. That's what my passion's in, right? I've gone from startups to working for large companies like Motorola and Valer and all those guys. The culture's different.
Yeah.
They're all about numbers. They're all about not so much strategy. They already have like numbers to achieve. When you're talking about startup, there's strategy involved, right?
You mentioned challenges. Conversation. Yeah. It's interesting because as entrepreneurs, we typically don't fit real well in the traditional corporate structure, you know? Like as we talked about in the past episodes, you know, checking in at a certain hour, checking out, you know, doing this particular job, you know, it's so much more exciting to be an entrepreneur in times of good and bad.
Oh my God, yes. And that's exactly what's happening in some of these large companies like Apple right now, right? They just switched most of their management to MBAs, right? But they lost all that entrepreneur, visionary kids that were in there. All the entrepreneurs that were really driving the company.
You look at some of the best entrepreneurs, you know, you mentioned kids. Look at your own, I've got a couple kids at home. Look at the kids and what they can come up with and how witty and how aggressive they can be as salespeople, and it's just amazing. You know, we put limitations, I think, on ourselves and people around us, when really if you let people just come to their full expression and bloom, it's amazing what we can come up with, what problems we can solve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, do you see that changing now? I mean, do you see how kids are coming up and there's like really no boundaries?
Yeah.
Right? Look at the technology they use.
Yeah.
Right? Some people are concerned about how they're disconnected. And I was originally, like maybe 5-6 years ago, about our kids being not so connected. But I look at my kids now, they are so connected.
Right.
Emotionally, physically, they know exactly what's going on, where. I think that's going to change how we look forward into business. Business is changing.
Well, you got to think about, we're not meeting the three of us to meet so we could talk. I mean, we recognize all the folks that are tuned in with us, all the bootstrapping entrepreneurs, the people interested in direct response marketing, people interested in social media marketing, people that love gorillas, welcome. So we're not about here and us, we're really about you, the audience. And all of you have different things, no matter how old you are, or what gender you are, or what culture you're from. You have things that you're passionate about, that you think about. As I think about, like, here's a slingshot, right? So this is this. So we start a new business. We started a business. I fixed it. You know, gorillas break things.
We had a debate whether this is a lion or a cow. Maybe we can give the audience.
It's a gorilla.
Oh, it's a gorilla.
Obviously.
Well, hopefully none of your relatives actually hand carved this because we're confused.
So talk to us about the slingshot. And for those that are listening and not watching, too bad, and we're sorry. So talk to us about the slingshot and what you're doing and what difference slingshot from other incubators and accelerators, why you're doing it, and the different phases of it. There's a magazine, there's a TV show, there's a junior entrepreneur.
Junior.
So talk to us about kind of the holistic view of Slingshot and why you're driving towards that and how that's changing things.
Let's talk about the Slingshot in general. I mean, the whole story came about from, it's the Goliath, you know, story.
That's right.
So what do you, when you're starting a company, there's a couple of things you need. You need to have the knowledge, right? From knowledge, you need to create some momentum. And then from momentum, you want impact, right? So that's the whole, and everything we do from Slingshot's perspective is really to get people, not a bunch of, like a business plan that's 40 pages, right? Or a marketing plan that's 60 pages.
That you're never going to stick to anyway.
Exactly.
It's true.
I mean, I think it's, it should be able to fit on one page. What's your business plan? Let's get it on one page, figure out what your target market is. So the whole goal and what we want to do is get people into motion, right? Get them thinking about what's my target market? How am I going to sell it? Who am I going to sell it to?
What's that kid movie? Keep Moving Forward is the whole thing. The anyway, you got kids. You've probably seen it 100 times too. Keep moving forward. Anyway, that's what it made me think.
Kid movie?
So that's actually what's really different about what we do is we want to get people into motion. And you start putting up all these roadblocks or gates and things like that. Stops people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
what would you say are the top 3 challenges that you see with young entrepreneurs, startups, that they're typically going to run into that you're going, let's kind of steer you this way a little bit?
The first one is maybe the business isn't matching their passion. Right? They're chasing money.
Right.
Sometimes they're just chasing money. And sometimes that works. Most of the time, it doesn't work.
Right.
You'll come into a big issue. And if you don't have something that's driving you past that challenge, and it's just money driven, many people fail right there.
Right. Yeah, in a past episode, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it yet, we've talked about, you know, that persistence, that passion persistence meeting accurate thinking being the key to success, where, you know, if you're not passionate, then you're not going to be persistent through those no's and those challenges, and it's easier to give up versus, you know, going, well, no, I'm thinking accurately about the market, the timing, and therefore I'm going to keep pushing forward.
Right.
Absolutely true. I think the second one is not having, sitting down with a coach and really coming up with a plan. I'm not talking about a 40-page business plan. I'm just talking about a very quick, you know, what's your product, what's your service, who's your target market, and how are you going to distribute that product.
Right. I mean, I grew up playing baseball and basketball. We always had a coach. Every team I was on, we had a coach. It's amazing how many entrepreneurs, especially young bootstrapping entrepreneurs, you know, they don't have a coach. It's like, well, you need a coach. Minimally to have some type of a voice of reason, because we all get skewed by our own environment. We all have our own blinders on to some degree, and you know, having a mentor, a coach to bounce ideas off of, to make sure that you are, you know, thinking accurately, and to maybe steer you away from some significant pitfalls is essential.
I think oftentimes an entrepreneur, they have certain people in their life that are successful, men, women, all ages and all levels of influence. And I think there's a reality that they get to approach these successful people in their life with usually one of 2 options. One option is the humble route, which is you go to these successful people and you say, coach me, guide me, advise me, you know, be on my board, be an advisor, take a look at my books, help me with profit and loss, you know, help me not screw this up. I have this employee problem, like, will you please help me? And I think most successful people pretty much will always say yes because nobody got there alone. All of us have been helped. The problem oftentimes, I think what happens with entrepreneurs is they need money. They need connections. They need something that is going to cost the successful person something, whether it's a loan, an investment, or having to introduce them to somebody that maybe they're not quite ready for. So the entrepreneur will go to the successful person or people and say, will you invest in my company? Okay, well, will you give me a loan? Okay, well, can you at least introduce me to somebody else that will give me a loan? And what happens oftentimes, a successful person will most likely put up resistance because the person probably isn't ready or somebody would have approached them. Yeah. And then that kind of breaks this opportunity where that successful person could have instead come into their business or come and sat down and had coffee and talked to them through things. So talk to us a bit about when you've had entrepreneurs come to you. And I've come to you for advice and money. So, I'm one of those guys that's coming to you, talk to you about, hey, just coach me, advise me. And I've come to you and said, hey, I need to raise funding, I need to get a loan. Is it something that you or somebody in your network wants to help? So I've come to you for both reasons. We have a long-term relationship, makes sense. Talk to us a bit about the difference you see in entrepreneurs reaching out to successful people and coaches and advisors for the wrong and right reasons. And how are they supposed to know what they should and should not do?
Great question. Matter of fact, that's exactly what I wrote down on the table to remind me who.
Yeah.
Who is your coach? Who are you getting information from, right? If you were having trouble in your marriage, let's say, for example, right? And you're going to go to get counseling. Are you going to go get counseling from a family counselor that's been divorced 5 times, is on their 6th marriage? Right. Or are you going to go to a counselor that has a long-standing marriage of 30 years? Right. Both are going to lead to different results. Right. They good or bad, right? Yeah. I think the same thing's true, and one of the issues I see in a lot of people I coach is who are they going to for information? Right. Are they going to that friend of theirs that's broke for information? Yeah. Or are they going to that successful person that know in their lives that's actually giving them great, valuable information? Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be a little bit guarded there, because if you go to somebody that has only had what they perceive as failures, then they're going to be, their attitude and their outlook could be very negative and just Debbie Downer. It's like they say you kind of are who you hang out with most, and being very guarded about your business and social circles and going, I want to hang out with like-minded individuals that are making things happen, that are morally on the same plane as my outlook and views, and all that is very important.
Ethics, integrity, honesty, I mean, those are all important. Same thing when you go out to talk to a coach or you're building relationships, those are important things that you should know who you're sitting down with. Right. Failure's not a bad thing, right, either. Yeah, no. Right? Failure, I've learned more.
Oh, we've all failed many times. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The key, I think, is when you do get a little traction, a little success, is going, okay, well, what differentiated this time around from my previous, and we don't even call them failures, we'll call them just challenges, and moving past that. And hopefully each time you do have a challenge that doesn't turn out quite as expected as we all have, you can look back at it through more mature eyes and say, okay, well, I get it. This didn't work out because of X, Y, and Z, and so therefore the next time around I can take care of those variables and expect a different outcome.
So I think the second thing to answer your question would be finances. They go together, right? Most entrepreneurs come and they have, they won't call it a budget. They don't say I have so much money, but they have so much money or time that they could put towards their idea or product, right? How they manage that money is critical, right? And who you go to is also critical, right? If you go to somebody who's built websites, right, and that's where they make their money, and you have a $10,000 available to take your product or service out to the world, and you spend $8,000 just on a website, right? It doesn't work, right? So that's what
a lot of people are tempted to do. Like, oh, I got to have the coolest, flashiest looking thing. Well, little they know, some of the people making the most money on the internet and e-commerce have a blank, basically a sales page. It's got no flashy, and then they put that together for $100 or something.
And they don't have a flashy business card. They don't have brochures and write all these things out. Right? They start from a point where they're leveraging their resources and their money, right, effectively.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the second part, is having somebody that helps you with that. Right. If you're going to take a product or service to market, what's the most effective way I can do that?
Right. Right. That produces an ROI, you know, because a lot of times we don't have the cash when we're first getting going, and the cash flow comes and goes, even in mature businesses, and being always conscious of, well, where can I spend my money today that is going to produce a result today or in the future that's overall beneficial from a revenue perspective.
Yeah, that's one of the big issues. People come, some clients come in, they go, I need your help. And I go, well, okay, what have you done? How much money have you spent? How much money do you have going forward? And they go, well, I just blew $20,000. I don't have any money.
Right.
And what'd you spend $20,000 on? Right? And how do you move forward? And they're like, well, I don't have any money. You know, and that's hard. Those are hard, and sometimes it's just a little tweak in their business.
Better to have coaching earlier than later, I think, is the takeaway there. You know, one of Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach up there in Canada, you know, he says, the problem is not the problem is how you think about the problem. So a lot of times, you know, you go into a coach and you go, oh, well, I'm broke. Well, how much money do you have? Well, I have this, but it's set aside for this big fancy website. You go, well, wait a second. You're actually not broke. We can work with this. Let's refocus and reprioritize where we're actually spending our money here to produce a better ROI.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, oftentimes you have entrepreneurs, it's their first go at it. And then you have entrepreneurs that it's their 5th or their 15th. What's the difference that you see in folks that are kind of maybe giving it their first shot, either because they're in high school or because they just retired or somewhere in between, or the people that are like serial entrepreneurs, they've done it 5, 10 times, they're on to the next thing. What are the differences that you see in these two types of people? And do you think both can be equally successful?
Oh, I think anyone can be successful in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It's just the willing and the want to be successful. And again, I guess it's going to go back to passion, right? If you're going to start a business, at least make sure you have an interest or a deep passion in what you're doing, right? I think that is the common thread that goes through all these guys. Look at Trump. A lot of people look at Trump and, you know, he came, he made a lot of money, he failed, he makes a lot more money. But if you talk to him, he lives and breathes what?
Right.
Real estate.
Real estate.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets up in the morning going, oh my God, where's the latest real estate deal?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
So, and in us, I mean, you, right? What do you wake up every morning? You're thinking about?
I'm thinking about selling drinks.
Heck yeah. So look at the grin on your face, look at your body language. Do you love it?
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah.
I love it.
You, marketing.
Right.
I mean, I know that. I mean, you used to get so excited that when you get up in the morning, it's that drives us, right?
So if first time or 15th time doesn't matter, how about age?
Okay. That was what I was going to ask. Yeah, what's the best age to get going?
So you're baby boomer, Gen X, millennial. There's a couple generations before me, 1 or 2 after you. So you have all these age groups. Does age matter?
Does age matter?
In success, should people that are on the far end of the spectrum, the retired and the kids that are in school, should they listen to this podcast if you're tuned in and say, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, go for it? Or should they go team up with somebody that maybe is at an age where they have a higher chance of success and partner up with them and support them and be part of an entrepreneurial venture rather than just do it on their own, since maybe the age doesn't cater to their success?
Well, let's talk about, there's a yes and a no.
Yeah.
Age does matter.
Okay.
Right? There's no doubt that as we get older, especially like in the corporate environment, we slow down. Some of us, right? We have different goals, different intents. We have family, kids, things we want to achieve, right? Young, I mean, we have nothing but time. We have all that energy, all that excitement, all that knowledge. There's a big difference between the knowledge base of the older group, right, and a younger group, right? So that's not good nor bad, right? What it is, remember I wrote that book called The Power of Three?
Right.
Right? No one that I know of, including myself, has ever been successful by myself. I've never done it by myself, right? I've always been able to find the right people to partner with that help us all to be successful, right? And some of the best mixes, depending on your product or service, is going to be maybe an older person has wisdom, knowledge, experience, and a young person that has all that excitement, that energy, and actually more or less the technology.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in technology for, God, what, 30, 35 years?
Right.
I do not set up my own phone.
Yeah.
Some people go, really? No, I can hand it to my kids. It'll take me an hour to set up. In 5 minutes, they've got my wallpaper up. They've got me synced with Google. They've got everything set up.
Can you have them help me?
Yeah. So you look at the advantages, you know, you have the maturity when you're a little older. Typically as an entrepreneur, we either have hopefully a lot of cash or a lot of time. Sometimes both, but not usually. So maybe an older entrepreneur may have a little bit more cash flow, a little bit more maturity, more experience, but the younger entrepreneur has more time availability, maybe more energy, maybe better physical health than just, you know, the gusto to go out and pound out a 16, 18-hour day. So
don't miss the technology.
Yeah.
Technology is very critical.
Yeah.
These kids growing up have a different way of thinking than the different other age groups. Completely different.
Yeah, and they're living in a time of exponential growth and thinking. If you look at Peter Diamandis' book Abundance, you know, he's got a lot of examples in there of the exponential technologies. At the beginning of the podcast, you talked about what used to cost hundreds of thousands or $1 million, now you can get it done for 10,000. Well, think about, you know, the implications of 3D printing on the manufacturing base. And before you had to run, you know, 10,000 units, 100,000, million units. Now you can run 1 unit with 3D printing. You know, so these exponential technologies that exist, robotics would be another example, genetics. I mean, these things that are coming around. You know, if your mindset is still in linear step-by-step thinking, maybe these younger kids are going, well, why are you doing this when you can just leapfrog or slingshot, you know, from A to Z?
And that's exactly what's happening.
Right.
I mean, you see these new technologies coming out that completely leapfrog these old companies. I mean, look at, I think Microsoft just laid off a bunch of people, right, recently. I think that's because of Google.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Google Docs, Android, all that stuff.
There's no doubt about it. Google's changed the game. So we've talked about first time or 12th time going at it. We've talked about old versus young, funded versus having money versus time. And
having a coach.
Yeah, let's talk about the older group for a bit.
Okay, let's talk about
because the older group. It's interesting. A lot of those people that come, they're either retired or they don't have a plan B and they just got laid off. That's another group that comes in and says, hey, I need help. I've got this idea. The interesting thing is that group either believes they don't know how, right? They don't have the knowledge, or they don't have the skill set, right? And it's interesting to watch that whole group. Once you get in there and talk about, you know, partnering with these other age groups, changes everything.
Yeah. I want to be sensitive about this question, but and let me say, I think my wife is an incredible entrepreneur. I love the women that I'm around that are entrepreneurial, but I do want to talk about gender. Do you think that gender matters, and what type of barriers are put up that maybe cause women to be less prone to really go for it when they have an idea? And we're around these gals, they're just incredible all the time. We see them starting businesses and service companies, product companies. But can you talk a bit about your experience with how gender plays out in this risk-taking, high-stakes, high-intensity world that we call entrepreneurship?
You know, it's interesting you say it that way, because women don't see it that way. Most women that start these companies, like the big blogs that are making a lot of money, I mean, there's people just off a blog that are making $2 million a month.
Right.
You're thinking, really, from a blog?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people just don't know that's possible. It's possible. Now, how do they do that? There is a difference between, and this is just a general comment, it's not always true, right? Is that women are there of service. So they naturally, if you're going to create any product or service, it's got to solve a problem, right? Women generally are that way. They're always trying to serve, solve problems, you know. Nurture, create groups, crowds, right? The same thing is true of guys, right? But we're probably a little more aggressive. The other interesting thing about the different genders is us guys will hold people accountable. I have no problem saying, hey, Aaron, you said you're going to do this on this day. What's up? It's not done. Right? Women, they have a different challenge with that. They have problems with that.
So what advice would you give to our women listeners out there that are, you know, starting a company, You know, maybe they got a little bit of funding, they're getting a little bit of traction, now they're starting to scale, so they're going to have to start managing employees and
relationships, goals.
Yeah, what would you tell them? Say, you know, what really be conscious of this?
Well, I'm going to go back to the power of three.
Okay.
I think one of the other things that's really important as an entrepreneur is to know your skill sets. You know your boundaries. You can spend a lot of time re-educating yourself.
Right.
Like a woman could be that person, and there are women that hold people accountable.
Yeah.
Right. But how much effort is it going to take for that individual and deviate from their business to become that individual?
I think it's a good take-home lesson for entrepreneurs. You know, focus on what you're good at, not on what you're bad at. I'm never going to be an NBA player, even though I love to play basketball. So for me to go out and spend 12 hours a day shooting hoops with a hoop dream, I'm going to get the NBA sometime. It's not going to happen. You know, so me focusing on my unique abilities and my unique skill set makes a lot more sense than focusing on what I'm really crappy at. I could just bring in a partner or an employee that
absolutely,
can fill that void. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's probably the bigger of the questions. Instead of male, female, let's focus on what I'm good at, what you're good at, and if you document or understand what the company needs, what you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, I'm not good at negotiating. I'm a bad closer. Right? Then what are you going to do? It's instead of learning that, let's go find someone that's a good closer.
Yeah,
right? Let's find someone that's a really good HR person that really relates to people.
Yeah, and you don't always have to look within your industry as well. I mean, some of the best people that I've found is outside of my particular industry. Like I'll be at a restaurant, and I've talked about this a bunch before. But, you know, if I meet a hostess that just blows me out of the water, like extra accommodating, you know, really knowledgeable professional, it's like, hey, you looking for a job? Because you'd fit right in as running our customer service at LifeAid.
I do that all the time.
You know what I'm saying? If you go to buy a car and this guy is just a great salesman, and it's like, hey, well, I need a salesman selling tech. If you can sell, you can sell. If you can,
that's right.
You know, if you're nurturing, you're nurturing. You know, so you don't always have to just have your blinders on and look within your own specific niche or industry.
Right.
Well, some of the best people that we've had, actually going for Borland, for example. The VP of HR was actually a waitress at the Shadowbrook.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
There you go. A high-end restaurant here in Santa Cruz, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the best, right? We didn't go out and look for somebody that already had those skills, and they're out there.
Yeah.
But this woman came and she had a passion for it, right? So you never know where you're going to get great people.
And you can teach. You can teach people programs. You can teach them systems. You can teach them all types of skills. What you can't teach is what's innate, and that ability to, you know, like this person that worked at the Shadowbrook to, you know, connect with people and make, you know, and give people that certain feeling when they come into the restaurant. So well, listen, I think
before we do wrap, I know we have 2 minutes left. We want to wrap. I just want you to take 1 minute and just really give a solid 30-second pitch on Silicon Valley SV. And I'd like you just to hit, what's the definition of Silicon Valley, and sorry, Slingshot Junior, Slingshot TV, Slingshot Mag. So you got a minute to just kind of hit those, because this is a great platform. The people listening to our show are going to be interested to see what happens with Slingshot. So just give us the 1 minute pitch.
Yeah, they want to hire you, or where can they find more about you?
Talk to the audience about it.
Well, the first place to go look at is slingshotsv.com. I mean, that's got all the different products and services we offer.
Yeah, Slingshot SV for Silicon Valley, slingshotsv.com. Okay.
That's right. My passion is actually helping all different groups, nonprofits, for-profits, startups, get launched.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got a nonprofit, Slingshot Junior, that is only connecting with middle school, high school students because they don't teach entrepreneurship. They don't teach any of this stuff. So we're focusing on that group. We have a virtual entrepreneur center where if people in Thailand or India or anywhere around the world want to start a business, we have tools and services to help them out. Right? So it's all about entrepreneurship from A to Z.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 35 years. I'm connected with all kinds of people. I think that's the last thing that we need to end this segment with is networking. And the size of your network is everything.
Yeah, we talked about list building in previous episodes. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And connecting with the right people. So I'm always available. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn.
What is your Facebook or LinkedIn how would they find you? Just search your name, or
look for Andrew Van Valer, or look for Slingshot SV. Slingshot SV is probably the best place.
Okay, great. Well, listen, a lot of value for today's show. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for
Make
inviting
sure you guys tune in next week. We're going to have Ryan Mellahan, CEO of Life Aid Beverage, my business partner, and we're going to talk specifically about funding. So any of you bootstrappers out there that are need
money,
rub the pennies together.
Yes.
We're going to deep dive into that a little bit. So thanks again, Andy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you both.